Let's get to Rich Anderson, former House of Delegates member, Northern Virginia, also Army Air Force veteran, colonel, and now a candidate for chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia. Rich, great to have you with us.
Great to be with you, John.
We're supposed to have a convention May 1st. That's out. So
Correct.
You're running for an office, but you can't meet with anybody. How do you sign up delegates? When's the convention going to be? Give us an update.
Well, the convention notionally is going to be on the 26th and 27th, again at the Virginia or the Richmond Greater Convention Center. But that has not yet been announced. All of those plans have not been finalized based on what I'm hearing. I've heard nothing directly from the party other than what has gone out to the general membership of the Republican Party membership. So at any rate, we're going to have to embrace some modified procedures. The party is trying to move to a place where they can do business electronically. I don't know any of the details on that. I just know it from the 50,000-foot level because, again, there is a dearth of information that's been flowing out from the state party headquarters. The local units, many of them did not meet their ceilings for the number of delegates they can bring to the state convention, so they were able to cancel their delegate selection processes, conventions, and firehouse primaries and such. So this will all move forward. The question is, when can we convene and do the business of the party in preparation for re-electing President Trump in November, electing a new chairman, and electing delegates to the national convention?
So, Rich, let me get this straight. So when you say a lot of things have been canceled in the various congressional districts and stuff and communities, it's basically the mass meetings. The purpose of the mass meeting is to elect the chair of a local committee, whether it be
unit,
county or city. And then also, if there's more delegates that have submitted forms, then they have seats available, you have to have a mass meeting. And go
through that vetting process to select delegates.
Right, but the mass meetings are canceled. So how do you go forward?
Correct. Well, I've been working the phones, talking to a lot of people as they select these delegates. We are in touch with the delegates directly through email, through mailed mail through the U.S. Postal Service, snail mail, and then a lot of conversation and a lot of emails. So we're in contact with these developments as these units select them and put them forward. That's the convention equivalent of door knocking, and I've got a pretty good record as a vociferous, energetic door knocker, and I'm applying the same thing and staying.
But you're just doing it over the phone.
Delegates through alternate means.
Okay, so like I'm in Chesapeake, and
Right.
my wife Ann and I filled out the form for delegate to both the state and district convention. Of course, we don't even know when the district convention is. But I haven't gotten any phone calls. I haven't gotten any emails. I haven't gotten anything. So did my chairman of Chesapeake not submit our name or what? What's the status with that?
Well, what happens under the party plan is there are specified deadlines after those lists are finalized and approved by each local committee. If it's a large committee, I believe they have, and I'm really winging this, John, but I believe they have 2 weeks for a large committee. And there's a certain number that's established for that large committee. And then there's a shorter timeline for a smaller committee because obviously their chore is not as large. So as soon as we get those, we are putting them into our database and then moving to contact those individuals who've been designated as delegates. You'll be hearing from me, and so will you.
All right, so eventually, like I live in the 4th District, eventually I'll get a list of all the delegates that have been submitted for the 4th District at
Correct.
some time. Of course, our race is already won. We had no opposition. But we're trying to nominate somebody running for Congress. Then there's a state committee. No one really knows how this is going to work, right? Because we don't know if it's going to be mail-in or what.
Correct. So all that's still being worked. I've seen that at least for the local elections in May, I'm talking about the public elections, there's going to be forthcoming information from the Virginia Department of Elections. But these wheels in Richmond are just moving and grinding at such a slow, medanic pace. We've got to move.
We just heard an ad that the Republican Party of Virginia is doing about moving the convention. I think they said to June 26th.
And 27th.
June 27th. What are the odds on that happening?
Well, I can't predict that. I don't have a crystal ball. And again, the flow of information out of the Republican Party of Virginia, I think, has been minimal. And in that vacuum, there's a lot of chatter out there on the internet, phone calls. I know I get them. People who have a lot of uncertainty. And I think that the party needs to bring certainty to the party membership and our processes to maintain confidence in our processes by which we select our leadership and our representatives. So I hope that we're going to hear something definitive very soon. All of this stuff involves agility and maneuver on the political battlefield, and we better get ourselves moving.
All right, we're with Rich Anderson, a former House of Delegates member, Republican, Northern Virginia. He's one of two candidates challenging Jack Wilson for the chairmanship of the Republican Party of Virginia. That'll be decided at some convention somewhere in the future. No one knows. There's a third candidate running. Rich, if you offered me $1,000, I couldn't give you his name. I have absolutely no idea. He's never reached out to me, so whatever. Let's get to one thing you just said is that there's a lack of information coming out of the Republican Party of Virginia. You said that 2 times here in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If you were chairman, what information would you be giving that Wilson's not? And be specific.
Well, what I would be specific about is I would have moved very quickly to ensure that with the State Central Committee and with the Executive Committee of that State Central Committee, that we very quickly defined a plan in order to move out.
Well, he did that. He did that.
He
changed the convention to June 27th. I mean, that's the best he could do under the circumstances.
Right, and let me just say, June 26th and 27th. Friday, June 26th is like the rules day, and the 27th is all the business, the elections, and so forth. So at any rate, we originally were going to have this in Lynchburg, and I don't want to get into all the he said, she said, but once again, it got moved to Richmond, created a great deal of uncertainty within the party. And so what I think we've got to do is we've got to nail these procedures down, move forward with planning. I haven't seen anything that indicates that the facility in Richmond has been nailed down. We know that there were difficulties with the facility at Liberty University for when it was originally in May. And so we've just got to nail that stuff down. Now, what doesn't help is this uncertainty that has been introduced by the current gubernatorial administration. I think we're in an environment, John, where I think we got to really keep our eye on 3 things. We obviously have to keep our eye on the coronavirus situation and comply with the CDC and the presidential and White House coronavirus task force guidelines. We got to do that. That's the first thing. But we've also got to keep our eye on our government simply because our state government has now introduced significant uncertainties into this democratic process, small d, regarding the process of selecting leadership up and down the line. As you know, the governor issued his executive order on this past Monday, which was the second executive order in 7 days, and extended the distancing guidelines all the way to the 10th of June, and that has created considerable consternation and uncertainty because that is the day after the state primary elections to determine a large number of important things. Plus, it bumps up on to this proposed date of June 26th and 27th for the Republican Party of Virginia state convention. So that's the second thing we got to watch is our government. And then the third thing we have to watch is rank and file grassroots members of the Republican Party of Virginia. We got to watch our own party and with expectations that they are going to be open and transparent and move quickly. I know there's a lot of moving parts, and there's significant challenges that come with that. Part of this is the fog and friction of war, but we need to watch these 3 things: the coronavirus situation, our own state government, and our own state party.
So what, again, I want to get specific. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I thought making it June 10th was odd. I thought if it was, June 5th or 7th or 6th, that would have, it just seemed odd that you would have the order go the day after the primary when the Democrats have no primaries, right? They don't have any. We've already had Super Tuesday. They've already got their Senate candidate. None of their incumbent Democrats are being challenged. So there's no primaries, right? So it just seemed odd to me. Maybe it was a coincidence. I doubt it. It just seemed odd. But
John, there's no such thing as coincidence in partisan party politics.
yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't have made it June the 7th or June the 8th. Why you would make it the day after the primary, which just wreaks havoc and chaos for Republicans that are trying to get people nominated to go up against Senator Warner or Abigail Spanberger or whatever, Elaine Luria.
The problem with the date that was selected, it certainly doesn't align with the federal date of April the 30th. It certainly isn't the end of a month. It isn't even the end of a work week. And it's a full 48 days after the original date that was specified.
It's fishy. I mean, to make it on a Wednesday, the whole thing is just suspect to me. And but look, that we've got two competitive races here for Congress, the 2nd and the 7th. Nobody knows when the 7th district is actually going to be. That's also in flux. And the 2nd, we're supposed to have a primary on June 9th. They know that if there's a primary, Scott Taylor wins big, and Taylor's going to beat Luria. So, I'm not spinning a conspiracy here, but it seemed awfully fishy to me, right? Because if there's some kind of mail-in ballot and Taylor gets beat by one of these other guys, Loyola or somebody, they're going to lose to Luria. Mm-hmm. Taylor can beat him. They know that. I don't know. It just seemed odd that it would be on a Wednesday. But I want to get specific, Rich Anderson, with us, running for chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia. What specifically would you do today, April 1st, if you were chairman, that Jack Wilson has not done?
Well, first of all, I would nail down the date of the 27th and 28th of June for our state convention. I would do the necessary paperwork with the Greater Richmond Convention Center, finalize it, and move forward. The governor has specified this date of the 10th of June. I would move forward and then simply advertise that, make sure that everyone was aware of it, and I do so by every means possible. And I'll tell you something. The concerning thing about this is it intrudes on some very precious, constitutionally protected rights of our citizens to assemble, and we need to do that carefully because of the coronavirus. There are good guidelines out there that should be followed. I and my family are following those. But there are ways to do this. We need to nail those down and get that out to the party quickly. Our danger, as I alluded to earlier, is our government. It's overused, but eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. We need to watch this state and federal government for some of these initiatives that intrude on constitutionally protected prerogatives and rights. We do have a grave challenge with the coronavirus, but you don't cancel your Constitution or batter it about in the process. There may be a point where we want to consider. I would have a deep conversation with the White House about the potential for U.S. Justice Department intervention here. Should this continue, and should it appear that these are political tricks in order to impede the ability of the Republican Party of Virginia to do its legitimate business? These other people are playing for keeps, and so we need to do the same thing. So, again, you ask yourself, two things. Number one, let's get to what you just said, Rich Anderson. Number one, the confusion about a primary and a nominee. Who does that impact? Any Democrats in Virginia? Answer, no. Any Republicans in Virginia? Answer, yes. It throws shade on the contest for nomination for U.S. Senate to run against Mark Warner. That's number one. No one knows what the system is. The longer they can delay that, the better. The other thing it does, and I'm going to say it again, it has no impact on the 7th because that's a convention and the party will figure that out, but it impacts Scott Taylor, who's the only person who they know is going to beat Elaine Luria in the 2nd district. Taylor's going to beat her. Any of these other candidates running against Taylor are benefited by confusion, mail-in ballots, something of that nature. They're all benefited by that. They can't win. So, therefore, you might have to get a justice ruling because it hurts no Democrats, and I'm going to call it the Elaine Luria Protection Act. That's basically, as far as I'm concerned, what this is.
I don't think anybody's going to beat Warner, but she's at risk, and there's only one person that's going to beat her, and the only thing this does is hamper his ability to be the nominee. So I'm going to say that. But again, I can't understand your criticism of Wilson, because I don't know what else the guy could have done. I mean, they canceled the convention. He set another date that was consistent with the committee. You said he's not advertised it. I mean, he advertises it on my show and my network five times a day. I mean, so he spent the money to advertise it. So I'm just confused as to what your beef is with the guy on this particular issue. I get all the stuff. He hasn't gotten the job done. He hasn't raised money, but just say he hasn't nailed down the convention center. Maybe he's negotiating the deposit that he can get that back or something. We don't know that. Ask him. Call him up and ask him. I just don't think that's fair, Rich.
All right, but there is a vacuum of information, and I hear that in these telephone calls that I make to convention delegates around the state. So it is a widespread concern. It seems to be a continuing inability of the party to be agile under pressure.
I don't know, Rich. I think you're stretching, buddy.
All right,
I think you got a lot of other issues here than I think Jack has been as transparent as you can be. I just don't know what else the guy can do. No one knows what the hell's going on from day to day, Rich Anderson. Look, I appreciate your coming on. We're going to continue to have your perspective on. Again, everybody, there's a third person running. I have no earthly idea what the guy's name is. I think he's from the Northern Neck. But if you offered me $1,000 cash right now to tell you who he is, where he is, why he's running, or what his name is, I couldn't win the $1,000 because I have no clue, because he's not reached out to me. So I have no idea. I do know that Rich Anderson is running, and right now we've got him as the favorite. Rich, thanks for being with us.
All right, John. Thanks for a good interview. Take care.